making friends with the feeling of doubt, but I still try to hold this.
Ruins of St. Paul's Pound. The ruins of St. Paul's refer to the facade of what was originally the Church of Mater Dei, built in 1602 to 1640, destroyed by fire in 1835, and the ruins of St. Paul's College, which stood adjacent to the church. As a whole, the old Church of Mater Dei, St. Paul's College and Mount Fortress were all Jesuit constructions and formed what can be perceived as the Macau's Acropolis. Close by, the archaeological remains of the old College of St. Paul stand witness to what was the first Western-style university in the Far East, with an elaborate academic program. Nowadays, the facade of the ruins of St. Paul's functions symbolically as an altar to the city. The ruins of St. Paul is the site of St. Paul Church. Construction of the Catholic Church began in 1602. It was the greatest of Macau's churches, but it burned down in 1835, leaving only its very large and beautiful façade and the front stairway. It has an interesting history. The church was built in 1602 adjoining the Jesuit College of St. Paul. That was the first Western college in the Far East. Missionaries such as Matteo Ricci and Adam Schall studied Chinese at the university, before serving at the Ming Court in Beijing as astronomers and mathematicians. The church was made of wood, and it was brilliantly decorated and furnished. The facade of carved stone was built in 1620 to 27 by Japanese Christian craftsmen who were refugees after the religion was wiped out in Japan. It was built under the direction of Italian Jesuit Carlo Spinola. Ruins of St. Paul. Ruins of St. Paul. The Jesuits were then expelled, and the college was used as an army barracks. In 1835, a fire destroyed the college and the body of the church. The surviving facade rises in 4 colonnaded tiers, and is covered with carvings and statues that illustrate the early days of the Catholic Church in Asia. There are statues of the Virgin and the saints, symbols of the Garden of Eden and the crucifixion, and carvings of angels and the devil, a Chinese dragon and Japanese chrysanthemum, a Portuguese sailing ship, and inscriptions written in Chinese characters to warn people. The facade seemed about to topple, but it was girded with steel, and at the backside of the ruins, a museum was built in 1995. There is a crypt that has the remains of Japanese and Vietnamese martyrs, and there is a museum of sacred art with paintings, sculptures and liturgical objects. The facade is 27 meters tall, 23.5 meters wide and 2.7 meters thick. The top floor is a triangle lintel under a cross. In the middle of the lintel is a copper dove. The dove is surrounded by the sun, moon, and stars. There is a statue of the baby Jesus Christ with the tools that were used to nail him to the cross. The major figures portrayed in the lintel are the Virgin Mary, the Holy Father, some holy saints, and Jesus Christ. The middle 2 floors reflect missionary endeavor. The ruins of St. Paul's, also known as Samba Sing Sik, stands adjacent to the famous Mount Fortress and Macau Museum. The front facade and the grand stone stairs are the only remains of the greatest church. First constructed in 1580, St. Paul's Church caught fires in 1595 and 1601. However, reconstruction started in 1602 soon after the church was burnt down. Completed in 1637, the church became the biggest Catholic church in East Asia at that time. Unfortunately, a violent typhoon hit Macau in 1835 and the church caught fire for the 3rd time, leaving its glorious history. According to historical materials, St. Paul's Church, built with white stones, had a grand, vaulted roof. It had 3 magnificently decorated halls, built with granites. Ruins of St. Paul's has a Baroque facade rich in ornamentation but with classic Oriental characteristics. From the bottom up, the structure has 5 tiers. The first tier is comprised of 10 Ionic columns with 3 entrances. The entrance in the middle has Mater Dei carved into it. The 2 entrances on each side are decorated with bas-reliefs in the pattern of HIS. The second tier features 10 Corinthian columns with 3 windows. A Catholic saint is enshrined in each of 4 tabernacles between columns. The 2 tiers as a whole is said to represent the Society of Jesus and the activities of missionaries. The remaining 3 tiers are the most decorated. The statue of Madonna stands in the middle of the 3rd tier, while the statue of Jesus stands on the 4th. The walls are covered with bas-reliefs and various patterns like devils, angels, symbols of crucifixion, a Portuguese sailing ship, etc. The triangular combination of the upper 3 tiers reflects the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit, as well as the Blessed Virgin Mary. A cross stands at the coping of the wall. It is worth mentioning that the stone lions at the sides of the 3rd and 4th tiers and ruins of St. Paul's are distinctively Chinese. There are also bas-reliefs and designs of chrysanthemum and cherry, as well as Chinese inscriptions. The surviving facade has long been acknowledged as a perfect fusion of Western and Eastern cultures. The ruins of St. Paul's has been restored during 1990 and 1995. The Museum of Sacred Art and Crypt was also built at that time. It has exhibitions of religions artworks including paintings, sculptures and statues. Monte Fort. Of all the forts in Macau, the Monte Fort is the oldest, lying to the east of the ruins of St. Paul's. Built in 1616, it originally belonged to St. Paul's Church and was used to defend the church from the pirates. It later became solely a military fort. The Monte Fort is quadrilateral with bastions at each corner and about 100 meters (328 feet) in circumference. Barracks, cisterns and storehouses were the main buildings of Monte Fort. An ancient tower situated here was one of the sites of the Society of Jesus. With cannons on the 4 sides, the fort was strongly fortified. Though the cannons have lost their military function, they still remain. In 1838, a fire destroyed the fort buildings as well as the Jesuit College and St. Paul's Church. Only see the fore-wall of the church now remains and is known as the ruins of St. Paul's. In 1965, a single-story barrack in South European style was transformed into the Macau Meteorological Bureau. To its right hangs an ancient bell made by an expert in casting cannons. In 1998, the Macau Museum was established here, detailing the development and the customs of Macau. The landscape surrounding Monte Fort is quite charming. Standing on the platform, visitors have an excellent view across Macau, making the Monte Fort a very popular attraction for both tourists and natives alike. Together with Macau Museum inside, Monte Fort, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is generally considered the premier historical attraction for tourists in Macau. The top battlements on the 9-meter-high walls are a great place to see the shimmering casino lights of mainland Macau and the colors of sunset. If the weather is right, the scenery is quite beautiful at dusk. The fort was built between 1617 and 1626 on the 52-meter tall Mount Hill, located directly east of the ruins of St. Paul's. 2. It was constructed to protect the properties of the Jesuits, mainly Portuguese Jesuits, in Macau, especially from pirates. Later, the fort was taken over by the Portuguese colonial governor and the relevant authorities for the defense of Macau. The fort occupies an area of roughly 8,000 square meters. 32 muzzle-loading cannon were placed around the fort's walls, and the two corners of the southeastern fort wall have small watchtowers. The fort proved crucial in successfully holding off the attempted Dutch invasion of Macau in 1622. 3. The fort remained a restricted military area until 1965, when the barracks in the fort were converted into a weather observatory and the fort was opened to the public. The observatory ceased its function and was relocated to Taipa in 1996 before it was demolished to make way for the Museum of Macau, which was officially opened on April 19, 1998. The tree-covered park at the top of the fort has a panoramic view of the mainland area of Macau. Due to the situation of the COVID-19 epidemic, please browse the below latest preventive measures and important notes for entering Macau. Latest epidemic prevention measures for arrivals at Macau. Prevention guidelines on the special web page against epidemics. New arrangements for medical observation hotels. Conditions for minor passengers who have to undergo medical observation. Arrivals are required to pay for regular nucleic acid tests during hotel quarantine. All those that travel to Macau via the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge Shuttle Bus Service, Golden Bus, or flight and that are subject to stay at a designated place are required to present a booking confirmation issued by the Medical Observation Hotel in order to board their respective buses or flights. The Macau Museum is a historical and cultural museum with a vast number of objects of great historical value, which demonstrates the way of life and cultures of the various communities which have been inhabited the city for ages. The first floor is a short and comparative presentation of the way Western and Chinese civilizations were developed before the arrival of the Portuguese in the Pearl River Delta in the 16th century. Besides, history of Macau, commercial activities, religions and cultures of the two civilizations are also displayed. Mounting the stairs to the second floor, visitors have the opportunity to come into contact with different aspects of the popular art and traditions of Macau, such as people's daily lives, entertainment, religious ceremonies and traditional festivals. The third floor shows contemporary Macau, including the characteristic aspects of city life. The way Macau has been portrayed in literature and the arts is prominently highlighted. The Macau Museum is located in the Mount Fortress, which was built by the Jesuits in the early 17th century. For a long time, the fortress was the city's principal military defense structure where public access was restricted. In 1965, this fortress was converted into the meteorological services and later opened to the public. Built on top of the Mount Hill, the Mount Fortress offers a panoramic view of the city. On its west is the ruins of St. Paul's. On July 15, 2005, the historic center of Macau was officially listed as UNESCO World Cultural Heritage. The Mount Fortress and the ruins of St. Paul's are significant historical monuments of the center. The Macau Museum was opened on April 18, 1998. Consisting of 2 underground levels and a third one above the fortress top platform where the old meteorological services is housed. The architectural character and special configuration of the architecture has been retained and preserved. Monty Fort, written by Gavin, updated Jan 27, 2021. Monty Fort is an almost 400-year-old, 100 by 100 meter stone fort, with superb sunset and casino views from the top, together with Macau Museum inside. Monty Fort, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is generally considered the premier historical attraction for tourists in Macau. The top battlements on the 9-meter-high walls are a great place to see the shimmering casino lights of mainland Macau and the colors of sunset. If the weather is right, the scenery is quite beautiful at dusk. Montefort stands out as the best preserved and large European construction of its age in East Asia. It is ranked 12 on TripAdvisor Things to Do in 2016, and it is the Macau Museum, Macau's best museum, that is interesting and quite popular in its own right. History. Macau Montefort Canon. Montefort was built by the Jesuits between 1617 and 1626. Walls enclosed quarters for soldiers and storehouses. Large cannons were set along the top battlements. The fort was designed to survive a 2-year siege, but the cannons were used in battle only twice. It is said that a miraculous shot fired accidentally by a monk hit a Dutch ammunition ship. The resulting explosions damaged the nearly victorious Dutch fleet so badly that they retreated. It remained a military base until 1965 when a weather station was built there. The weather station building was removed by the then Macau government between 1996 and 1998 and replaced with today's Macau Museum. It sits in the grassy park on top of the fort. There is an escalator that can take you to the museum. You'll see it as you walk the path up. Ranked 8 of the top things to do on TripAdvisor in 2016. Suggested scenic walk to the fort. The fort, the remains of St. Paul's, and the Senado Square are part of the historic center of Macau UNESCO World Heritage Site. Heritage Walk. You could take a half-kilometer walk from Largo do Senado Square on San Malo Street and see the main attractions of the World Heritage Sites during your walk and the local scenery, and you could visit the tourist shops along the way. Walk east 50 meters from the front of St. Dominic's Church, and turn left at the first corner. Walk north 100 meters, and you'll reach a narrower road called the Rua de San Paulo. Follow that northwards about 250 meters, and you'll reach the Commercial and Tourist Center building. St. Paul's is behind it. See the remains of St. Paul's Cathedral, 1627, and then walk up all the stairs to the top or take the escalator to the museum. Montefort. Originally built in 1616 AD, Montefort is one of China's oldest Western-style forts. Initially owned by the church, it was built to protect the clergy of St. Paul's Cathedral and guard against pirates, but subsequently turned into a district of military facilities. In the past, the fort stood high in the center of Macau, acting as a strategic point and functioning to defend the city. The old cannons placed in the fort played an important role in fighting against the Dutch invasion in 1622. Montefort was once the Governor-General's official residence. Unfortunately, in the year of 1835, a conflagration destroyed all the structures in Montefort and the College of St. Paul. Consequently, what was left behind was its anterior wall, which is known as today's ruins of St. Paul. A garden encompassed by green grasses and ancient trees has been built in the open space of Montefort, with the old cannons nestling by its side. As people overlook the panoramic view of Macau and the ruins of St. Paul's Cathedral here, it is a great resort for local residents and tourists to visit. In the past, there erected a Southern European-style structure in the fort, which served as a barrack and later changed to a local observatory. In 1998, the 3-story Macau Museum was completed, where the city's 100 years of history vividly presented to the visitors through its items on display. In the museum, visitors are able to experience directly the peaceful coexistence between many ethnic groups in Macau, the city's historical involvement and contemporary local lifestyle, as well as local people's hopes for a better future. A corridor featuring both European style and modernity is located at the foot of a hill, facing the eastern side of Montefort, serving as an intermediate station for the visitors who want to walk from St. Lazarus Church to the scenic areas around Montefort, including Macau Museum. Modernity and historical heritages are well integrated given that Montefort is next to the busiest commercial areas of Macau. The annual grand event, the Macau International Music Festival, has been repeatedly held there. Standing by the side of ruins of St. Paul, Montefort is referred to as Street Paul's Fort, Central Cannon or St. Paul's Cannon, built from 1617 to 1626. It was originally a part of the College of St. Paul and St. Paul's Cathedral. Montefort's scenic spot area was listed as a World Heritage in 2005, becoming China's 31st World Heritage.